Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped off the transport shuttle onto station Kepler 442, her boots making soft contact with the polished metallic floor. The massive space station served as a diplomatic hub for the Galactic Council, where representatives from dozens of species conducted trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, and scientific collaborations. Elena carried a simple backpack containing her personal belongings and a small cooling unit that would soon become the center of an intergalactic incident. As the head of human culinary sciences aboard the research vessel Endeavour, Elena had been invited to present humanity's food preparation techniques to the Galactic Nutrition Safety Committee. It was supposed to be a routine cultural exchange, the kind that helped foster better understanding between species. She had no idea that her presentation would nearly cause a diplomatic crisis. The station's main corridor stretched before her like a crystal canyon, its transparent aluminum walls offering spectacular views of the twin stars that illuminated this sector of space. Beings from across the galaxy moved through the walkways, the tall, crystalline Zephyrians whose bodies chimed softly as they walked, the furry, bear-like Gronthans who communicated through complex chemical scents, and the aquatic Nereidans who floated in mobile water tanks, their tentacles gracefully manipulating holographic interfaces. Elena had studied xenobiology for years, but seeing so many species in one place still filled her with wonder. Each race had evolved differently, adapting to unique environments and developing their own survival strategies. What she hadn't fully grasped until this moment was how those evolutionary differences extended to their relationship with food. Her first hint came at the customs checkpoint, where a nervous-looking Zephyrian official scanned her cooling unit with obvious concern. The being's crystalline form flickered between blue and yellow, colors Elena recognized as indicating anxiety. "Human Vasquez," the official said, their voice resonating like wind chimes. "This cooling unit contains organic matter that has been stored for multiple planetary rotations. Our sensors detect significant bacterial activity." Elena smiled reassuringly. "Yes, that's correct. I'm here to demonstrate traditional human food preparation techniques. The herbs I brought have been curing for 3 days, which is exactly how long they need to develop the proper flavor profile." The official's color shifted to a deeper yellow. "You intend to consume matter that has been decomposing for 3 rotations?" "Not decomposing," Elena corrected gently. "Curing. It's a controlled process that enhances flavor and nutritional value. Many human foods require aging to reach their peak quality." After several minutes of consultation with supervisors and a thorough scan that confirmed the herbs posed no threat to station biosecurity, Elena was cleared to proceed. She made her way to the diplomatic quarters assigned to the human delegation, noting the curious stares her presence attracted. Word seemed to travel fast on the station. Her quarters were spacious by human standards, with a living area that could accommodate the various atmospheric requirements of different species. She immediately set up her portable cooking station, a compact unit that could replicate the conditions needed for human food preparation. The herbs went into a specialized container that would maintain the perfect environment for the final stages of their curing process. The herbs themselves were nothing extraordinary by human standards. They were Thymus serpillum, a variety of wild thyme that grew on Earth's Mediterranean regions. Elena had harvested them herself during her last shore leave, following a traditional method passed down through her grandmother's family. The process was simple. Pick the herbs at dawn when their essential oils were concentrated, bundle them loosely to allow air circulation, and hang them in a dry, warm place for exactly 3 days. To humans, this was basic food preparation. To the rest of the galaxy, it was apparently an act of culinary madness. Elena's first official meeting was with Dr. Kethtar, a Meridian scientist who served as the chairman of the Galactic Nutrition Safety Committee. The Meridians were an insectoid species known for their methodical approach to everything, particularly food safety. They had evolved on a world where contamination could spread through entire hive colonies in hours, making them extremely cautious about anything they consumed. Dr. Kethtar's compound eyes reflected the light in complex patterns as he examined the preliminary report about Elena's presentation materials. His chitinous fingers clicked nervously against the conference table as he read. "Dr. Vasquez," he began, his voice carrying the distinctive buzz that characterized Meridian speech, "I must express significant concern about your planned demonstration. Our preliminary scans indicate that the organic matter you brought contains active bacterial colonies, fungal spores, and various microorganisms that would be considered highly dangerous by galactic food safety standards." Elena had expected this conversation. She had reviewed the galactic food safety protocols during her journey to the station, and she understood why her methods would seem alarming to species that had evolved different survival strategies. "Dr. Kethtar, I appreciate your concern, but I think there may be a misunderstanding about human food preparation methods. What your scanners detected as dangerous contamination is actually a carefully controlled fermentation and curing process. Humans have been using these techniques for thousands of years." The Meridian's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "Dr. Vasquez, the bacterial levels in your samples exceed our safety thresholds by factors of hundreds. The microorganisms present include several strains that would cause immediate systemic failure in most galactic species." "But not in humans," Elena pointed out. "Our digestive systems and immune responses evolved to handle these microorganisms. In fact, many of them are beneficial to human health. The fermentation process actually increases the nutritional value of the herbs while creating flavor compounds that enhance the eating experience." Dr. Kethtar's color shifted to a darker shade of green, indicating deep confusion. "You are telling me that humans deliberately introduce harmful microorganisms into their food as part of the preparation process?" "Not harmful to us," Elena emphasized. "Humans have co-evolved with these microorganisms over millions of years. Our gut bacteria, our immune systems, even our taste preferences have all adapted to work with these natural processes. What seems dangerous to other species is actually an integral part of human nutrition and culture." The meeting continued for over an hour, with Dr. Kethtar becoming increasingly alarmed as Elena explained various human food preparation techniques. She described how humans aged cheeses for months or even years, allowing specific molds to grow on the surface. She explained how fermented vegetables like sauerkraut and kimchi contained billions of living bacteria that humans considered beneficial. She detailed the process of dry aging meat, where controlled decomposition was used to enhance flavor and tenderness. With each example, Dr. Kethtar's color grew darker and his clicking became more rapid. Finally, he raised a chitinous hand to stop her explanation. "Dr. Vasquez, I must halt this discussion. What you are describing is not food preparation. It is controlled toxin production. I cannot in good conscience allow you to demonstrate these techniques to the committee. The risk of contaminating the station's food systems is too great." Elena felt a surge of frustration. This was exactly the kind of misunderstanding she had hoped to prevent. "Dr. Kethtar, I understand your concerns, but you're looking at this from the perspective of Meridian biology. Humans have different physiological capabilities. We can safely consume many things that would be harmful to other species, just as other species can consume things that would be harmful to humans. The safety protocols exist for a reason," Dr. Kethtar insisted. "They protect all species aboard this station. I cannot make exceptions, even for cultural practices." The conversation ended in stalemate. Elena was granted permission to remain on the station and attend the committee meetings, but her demonstration was indefinitely postponed pending a full review by the Galactic Health Authority. She returned to her quarters feeling defeated, staring at her cooling unit full of perfectly cured herbs that she was now forbidden to use. That evening, Elena received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Zara Okafor, a human xenobiologist stationed permanently on Kepler 442, knocked on her door with a sympathetic expression. "I heard about the meeting with Dr. Kethtar," Zara said as she entered. "I've been working with the Galactic Council for 5 years now, and I've seen this kind of reaction before. Most species in the galaxy have very different relationships with food than humans do." Elena gestured for Zara to sit down. "I don't understand the level of panic. It's just herbs that have been curing for 3 days. On Earth, people eat aged cheeses that are years old, fermented fish sauce, sourdough bread made with wild yeast cultures. Why is this so terrifying to them?" Zara smiled knowingly. "Because most galactic species evolved as either obligate carnivores, pure herbivores, or filter feeders. They have very specialized digestive systems that can only process specific types of food. The idea of deliberately introducing microorganisms into food is alien to them, literally." She continued. "Take the Meridians, for example. They evolved from a hive insect species where food contamination could wipe out entire colonies. Their entire cultural and biological approach to nutrition is based on absolute sterility. The Zephyrians are even more extreme. They survive by absorbing pure energy from crystalline matrices. The concept of eating organic matter at all is foreign to them." Elena began to understand the scope of the challenge she faced. "So when I talk about controlled fermentation, they hear deliberate contamination. When I mention beneficial bacteria, they think dangerous pathogens." "Exactly," Zara confirmed. "And the problem is that they're not wrong from their perspective. The bacteria in your herbs could kill most of the species on this station. The fact that humans can not only tolerate but actually benefit from these microorganisms makes us seem either incredibly reckless or impossibly resilient." Elena looked at her cooling unit with new understanding. "So how do I convince them that human food preparation isn't a form of biological warfare?" Zara's expression became more serious. "That's the challenge. The Galactic Council has been debating human membership for months now, and our eating habits have become a significant concern. There's a faction that believes humans are too dangerous to be allowed unrestricted access to galactic facilities." This was news to Elena. She had assumed her presentation was a simple cultural exchange, not a test of human fitness for galactic society. "What do you mean, too dangerous?" "Think about it from their perspective," Zara explained. "Humans can eat things that would kill them. We can survive in environments that would be lethal to most species. We can process toxins, adapt to new food sources, and even consume controlled amounts of harmful substances for pleasure. To many species, this makes us seem either incredibly advanced or terrifyingly unpredictable." Elena stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars that represented hundreds of civilizations. "So my little cooking demonstration has become a diplomatic incident." "Not just your demonstration," Zara said. "Last month, a human trade delegation shared some Earth coffee with Gronian representatives. The Gronians had to be hospitalized because the caffeine content was toxic to their nervous systems. 3 weeks ago, a human research team was nearly quarantined because they were eating fermented soybeans that registered as a biological hazard on station sensors." Elena turned back to face Zara. "What happens now?" "Now you have an opportunity," Zara said with a determined expression. "Dr. Kethtar may have postponed your demonstration, but word about the human contamination incident has spread throughout the station. Every species representative wants to understand what makes humans so different. If you can find a way to explain human food culture that doesn't terrify them, you might help secure humanity's place in the Galactic Council." Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What had started as a simple presentation about herb preparation had become a test of humanity's compatibility with galactic civilization. She looked at her cooling unit one more time, seeing not just 3-day-old herbs, but a symbol of everything that made humans unique in the galaxy. I need to find a way to show them that our differences aren't dangerous, she said finally. They need to understand that human adaptability is a strength, not a threat. Zara nodded. The committee meeting is tomorrow morning. Dr. Kethtar will present his findings about your herbs to the full council. That's when they'll decide whether to recommend restrictions on human food activities in galactic facilities. Elena spent the rest of the evening researching everything she could find about the dietary habits and food preparation methods of the major galactic species. She studied their evolutionary histories, their cultural attitudes toward nutrition, and their biological limitations. Slowly, a plan began to form in her mind. The next morning, Elena prepared for what might be the most important presentation of her career. She dressed in her formal Human Scientific Corps uniform and gathered her materials, including the controversial cooling unit. As she walked through the station corridors toward the committee meeting room, she noticed the increased attention her presence attracted. Groups of beings stopped their conversations to watch her pass. Security personnel shadowed her movements at a discreet distance. The entire station seemed to be holding its breath, waiting to see what the dangerous human would do next. Elena smiled to herself. If they thought 3-day-old herbs were dangerous, they had no idea what humans were really capable of. But perhaps, with the right approach, she could help them understand that humanity's unique relationship with food was not a threat to be feared, but a perspective to be valued. The committee meeting room was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to witness what some were calling the Human Food Safety Hearing. Elena took her place at the presentation podium, her cooling unit beside her, and prepared to defend not just her herbs, but humanity's place in the galaxy. The future of human galactic relations might depend on how well she could explain the simple act of grilling 3-day-old herbs. The committee meeting room fell silent as Dr. Kethtar activated the holographic display showing the bacterial analysis of Elena's herbs. The 3-dimensional representation rotated slowly, revealing clusters of microorganisms in vivid detail. Gasps and alarmed chittering filled the air as representatives from various species witnessed what they perceived as a biological weapon disguised as food. Elena watched the reactions carefully. The Zephyrians' crystalline forms shifted to deep red, a color she had learned indicated extreme danger warnings in their culture. The Gronian representatives released stress pheromones that made several nearby species instinctively back away. Even the usually calm Nereidans were agitating their tentacles in their water tanks, creating small whirlpools of anxiety. Dr. Kethtar's voice carried across the room with the authority of someone used to delivering dire warnings. As you can see, the bacterial count in the human's food sample exceeds our safety standards by a factor of 300. The microorganisms present include several strains that our database classifies as potentially lethal to 73% of known galactic species. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrians spoke first, their voice resonating like crystal bells in a storm. How can we possibly allow humans unrestricted access to our facilities when they carry such biological hazards? This is precisely the kind of contamination risk that our safety protocols were designed to prevent. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled representatives. Elena could see the fear in their postures, the way they unconsciously moved away from her position at the front of the room. In their eyes, she wasn't a scientist sharing her culture. She was a walking biological disaster. Elena stood up, her movement causing several beings to flinch. "May I address the committee?" Dr. Kethtar's compound eyes fixed on her with obvious reluctance. "Dr. Vasquez, while I appreciate your desire to explain your position, the evidence is quite clear. The microorganisms in your samples pose an unacceptable risk." "To you, yes," Elena said calmly, "but not to humans. And I believe that difference is exactly what this committee needs to understand." She activated her own holographic display, showing a detailed scan of her own digestive system. The image revealed a complex ecosystem of billions of microorganisms living symbiotically within her body. "This is my gut microbiome," she explained. "Every human carries approximately 100 trillion beneficial bacteria in their digestive system. These organisms help us process food, synthesize vitamins, support our immune function, and protect us from harmful pathogens. Without them, humans would die." The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Several species had never encountered beings that lived in permanent symbiosis with microorganisms. Dr. Illeth of the aquatic Nereidans spoke through their translation device, their tentacles writhing with curiosity. "You are saying that humans are not individual organisms, but rather walking colonies of multiple species?" Elena smiled. "In a sense, yes. But it goes deeper than that. Human culture and cuisine have evolved around this biological reality. We don't just tolerate microorganisms, we've learned to cultivate and control them for our benefit." She gestured to her cooling unit. "These herbs that have caused so much concern? They've been undergoing a controlled fermentation process that reduces harmful bacteria while encouraging beneficial ones. The microorganisms you detected are actually making the herbs safer and more nutritious for human consumption." Ambassador Thector of the Meridians buzzed with agitation. "But the levels of contamination are perfectly normal for human food," Elena interrupted gently. "Let me show you something." She opened her cooling unit and removed the bundle of herbs. The scent that escaped caused immediate panic among several species. Emergency air filtration systems activated automatically, and security personnel moved closer to Elena's position. "These herbs," Elena continued, completely unfazed by the reaction around her, "contain exactly the right levels of beneficial bacteria to enhance human health. The fermentation process has concentrated their essential oils, making them more flavorful and easier for humans to digest. To your sensors, they look dangerous. To human biochemistry, they're perfect." Dr. Vexani, a tall, gray-skinned Altarian, spoke in measured tones. "Dr. Vasquez, even if we accept that humans have adapted to coexist with these microorganisms, the fact remains that your presence on this station puts other species at risk. The cross-contamination potential alone is exactly why I'm here," Elena said. "Not to contaminate anything, but to help you understand the precautions humans take when interacting with other species. We're not reckless. We're adaptable." She pulled out a small device that looked like a modified scanner. "This is a biological compatibility analyzer. Before any human consumes food in a mixed-species environment, we use devices like this to ensure that our food choices won't create airborne contaminants that could harm other species. We've been using similar technology for decades in Earth's wildlife preserves." Elena demonstrated the device on her herbs, showing how it analyzed not just the microorganism content, but also the potential for cross-species transmission. The readout showed that while the herbs contained bacteria harmful to other species if consumed, the risk of airborne contamination was minimal with proper handling. "You see," Elena explained, "humans understand our unique biology, and we take responsibility for it. We don't expect other species to adapt to us. We adapt our behavior to coexist safely with others." The demonstration had a visible effect on the committee. While they still seemed uncomfortable with the concept of deliberately cultured bacteria, they were beginning to see that humans had given serious thought to the implications of their unusual biology. Dr. Kethtar leaned forward in his chair. "Dr. Vasquez, while your precautions are reassuring, the fundamental question remains: why do humans engage in these practices at all? Why deliberately expose yourselves to microorganisms when safer alternatives exist?" Elena had been hoping for exactly this question. She gestured to the holographic display again, this time showing a timeline of human evolutionary history. Because humans evolved as what we call opportunistic omnivores. Our ancestors had to survive in changing environments with unpredictable food sources. We developed the ability to extract nutrition from almost anything organic, plants, animals, fungi, even foods that other species would consider spoiled or contaminated. The timeline showed how early humans had spread across Earth's diverse ecosystems, adapting their diets to local conditions. Images of humans eating everything from fermented mare's milk to aged fish to insect larvae filled the display. Our ability to process diverse food sources wasn't just about survival, Elena continued. It gave us advantages. We could explore new territories without worrying about finding compatible food sources. We could survive disasters that wiped out specific food supplies. We could adapt to climate changes that made traditional food sources unavailable. Ambassador Veltar's crystalline form shifted to a cautious yellow. You are suggesting that this apparent recklessness is actually a survival strategy? Exactly, Elena confirmed. What looks like dangerous behavior to species with specialized diets is actually our greatest strength. Humans can find nutrition in environments where other species would starve. She changed the display to show comparative dietary ranges across galactic species. The visualization was striking. Most species had narrow bands representing their compatible food sources, while the human range covered nearly the entire spectrum. Dr. Illith's tentacles moved in what Elena recognized as the Nereidan gesture for amazement. This is unprecedented. Most species in the galaxy have evolved toward increasing specialization. Humans appear to have evolved toward maximum adaptability. Elena nodded. And that adaptability extends beyond just what we can eat. It affects how we think about food, how we prepare it, and how we share it with others. The herbs I brought aren't just food. They're a cultural artifact that represents thousands of years of human innovation in food preservation and preparation. She began to carefully prepare her portable cooking station, moving slowly to avoid alarming the watching representatives. With your permission, I'd like to demonstrate the actual cooking process that these herbs were designed for. I can show you how humans transform potentially hazardous ingredients into safe, nutritious food. Dr. Keth Tar looked around the room nervously. Dr. Vasquez, I'm not sure the committee is prepared for a controlled demonstration under proper safety protocols, Elena finished. I understand your concerns and I share them. That's why I propose we conduct this demonstration in the station's environmental testing lab with full atmospheric isolation and monitoring. The suggestion sparked intense debate among the committee members. Some species argued that any demonstration was too risky. Others were curious about human food preparation techniques. A few seemed to recognize the diplomatic importance of understanding human culture. Finally, Ambassador Kethral of the Unified Trade Consortium spoke up. The consortium represented dozens of species involved in galactic commerce, and their voice carried significant weight in council decisions. The committee has a responsibility to understand the species we interact with, Kethral said in their mechanical translated voice. If humans are to be full participants in galactic civilization, we must understand their capabilities and limitations. I support a controlled demonstration under appropriate safety measures. Dr. Kethtar looked like he wanted to object, but the murmurs of agreement from other representatives made it clear that the committee wanted to see Elena's demonstration. After several minutes of discussion about safety protocols and monitoring procedures, permission was granted. The environmental testing lab was located in the station's research section, behind multiple layers of containment fields and atmospheric barriers. Elena felt like she was entering a maximum security facility rather than preparing to cook some herbs, but she understood the precautions were necessary to ease the fears of the other species. The lab itself was impressive. a sterile chamber capable of simulating the environmental conditions of dozens of different worlds. Observation windows allowed the committee members to watch from a safe distance, while sensors monitored everything from air quality to electromagnetic radiation. Elena set up her portable cooking station in the center of the chamber. The device was simple by human standards, basically a high-tech camping stove with precise temperature controls. To the watching aliens, it probably looked like an exotic piece of scientific equipment. The cooking process I'm about to demonstrate has been used by humans for over 10,000 years, Elena explained into the chamber's communication system. The technique is called grilling, and it uses controlled heat application to transform raw ingredients into cooked food. She carefully removed the herbs from their container, handling them with the reverence they deserved after 3 days of careful preparation. The bundle released a rich, earthy aroma that triggered another round of automated air quality alerts. The microorganisms you detected in these herbs have been breaking down complex organic compounds into simpler, more digestible forms, Elena continued as she prepared to begin cooking. This fermentation process is similar to what happens naturally in the human digestive system, but by controlling it externally, we can enhance flavors and improve nutritional absorption. Elena activated her cooking station, and the chamber filled with the gentle hum of the heating elements. She placed the herbs on the cooking surface, where they immediately began to release aromatic compounds that sent the station's biological sensors into overdrive. The reaction from the observing committee was immediate and dramatic. Several species backed away from the windows despite being safely separated from the cooking process. Emergency alerts flashed on control panels throughout the lab. Dr. Kethtar's color had shifted to a deep, alarmed green, but Elena remained calm and focused, turning the herbs carefully to ensure even cooking. The 3-day curing process had prepared them perfectly for this moment. The controlled fermentation had concentrated their flavors while creating the ideal moisture content for grilling. "What you're witnessing," Elena said as she worked, "is the Maillard reaction, a chemical process that occurs when amino acids and sugars are heated together. This reaction creates hundreds of new flavor compounds that enhance the taste and aroma of the food." On the monitoring displays, the committee could see complex chemical changes occurring in real time. Proteins were denaturing, cellular structures were breaking down, and new organic compounds were being created. To species accustomed to consuming pre-processed or synthesized nutrition, the transformation was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. Elena continued her explanation, describing each step of the process in terms that emphasized the scientific precision behind what appeared to be a chaotic transformation. She explained how the controlled heat application sterilized harmful bacteria while preserving beneficial enzymes. She detailed how the fermentation process had pre-digested complex compounds, making them easier for human biochemistry to process. As the herbs finished cooking, Elena used her biological compatibility analyzer to demonstrate how the cooking process had changed their safety profile. The device showed that while the raw herbs would have been harmful to most species, the cooked version posed significantly reduced risks. "The final product," Elena announced, "is safe for human consumption, nutritionally enhanced through fermentation and cooking, and no longer poses a cross-contamination risk to other species in a shared environment." She carefully plated the finished herbs, their appearance transformed from the dried bundles she had started with. The grilled herbs had a rich golden brown color and released a complex aroma that somehow managed to smell appetizing even to species that didn't consume organic matter. The committee observed in stunned silence as Elena took a small portion of the cooked herbs and ate them, demonstrating their safety for human consumption. The monitoring systems showed no signs of distress in her vital signs. In fact, they showed the slight positive responses typical of humans consuming foods they found particularly satisfying. Dr. Zara Okafor, who had been watching from the observation area, stepped forward to address the committee. What Dr. Vasquez has demonstrated represents more than just human food preparation techniques. She's shown you something fundamental about human nature, our ability to take potentially dangerous situations and transform them into beneficial outcomes through knowledge, skill, and careful control. The implications of this statement were not lost on the committee members. They had just witnessed a human deliberately expose herself to what they considered biological hazards, then use controlled processes to transform those hazards into safe, beneficial nutrients. The parallel to human behavior in other areas was obvious. Ambassador Kethrall was the first to speak. This demonstration raises important questions about human capabilities that extend far beyond food preparation. If humans can routinely manage and control biological processes that other species find dangerous, what does this suggest about their potential contributions to galactic civilization? The question hung in the air as the committee members contemplated the implications. Elena remained in the testing chamber, quietly cleaning her equipment, while the beings who had initially seen her as a biological threat began to reconsider their assumptions about human capabilities and intentions. The 3-day-old herbs had done more than provide a simple cooking demonstration. They had opened a window into the fundamental differences that made humans unique in the galaxy, and forced the Galactic Council to confront questions about diversity, adaptation, and the value of different evolutionary strategies in their expanding civilization. The days following Elena's demonstration transformed the atmosphere aboard Station Kepler 442. What had begun as a food safety crisis had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic diplomatic history, a fundamental reevaluation of what it meant to be a member of the galactic community. Elena found herself at the center of countless informal meetings and discussions. Representatives from various species approached her with questions that went far beyond food preparation. They wanted to understand human adaptability, human risk assessment, and human approaches to problem solving. Dr. Vexani, the Altarian representative, was among the first to seek a private conversation. The tall, gray-skinned being met Elena in one of the station's botanical gardens, a space designed to accommodate plant life from various worlds. Dr. Vasquez, Vexani began, their large black eyes reflecting genuine curiosity. Your demonstration has caused significant discussion among the Altarian delegation. We are a species that has achieved stability through careful control and predictable processes. The idea of deliberately introducing uncertainty into essential activities like food preparation is challenging for us to comprehend. Elena walked beside the Altarian through gardens filled with exotic plants from dozens of worlds. Some glowed with bioluminescent patterns, others moved with their own internal rhythms, and a few seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. I understand your perspective, Elena replied thoughtfully. But consider this. What you see as introducing uncertainty, we see as expanding possibilities. When humans learned to control fermentation, we didn't just learn to prepare one type of food better. We learned principles that could be applied to countless different ingredients and situations. Vexani paused beside a display of crystalline flowers from the Zephyrian homeworld. But surely such approaches carry enormous risks. How do humans manage the potential for catastrophic failure? Elena smiled. By accepting that failure is part of the learning process. Yes, sometimes our experiments don't work out. Sometimes we create food that tastes terrible or makes us sick. But each failure teaches us something new about the process, and eventually we develop better methods. The Altarian approach has always been to perfect a process before implementing it, Vexani said. We spend decades or even centuries refining our techniques to eliminate all possibility of failure before we consider them safe for general use. And that's a valid approach, Elena acknowledged. But it's not the only one. The human approach allows for rapid adaptation to new situations. When we encounter an unknown environment or an unexpected challenge, we can experiment and adapt quickly rather than waiting for perfect knowledge. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Illith, whose water tank had been modified with mobility enhancers that allowed them to navigate the garden paths. The Nereidan's tentacles moved in complex patterns as they communicated through their translation device. Dr. Vasquez, I hope you don't mind my joining this discussion. The aquatic species have been debating the implications of your demonstration extensively. We are particularly interested in your statement about humans being opportunistic omnivores. In aquatic environments, such adaptability would provide enormous advantages. Elena turned to address both beings. That's exactly right. Human adaptability isn't just about food, it's about our approach to problem-solving in general. We've learned to thrive in diverse environments because we developed strategies for dealing with uncertainty and change. Dr. Illith's tentacles moved, and what Elena had learned was a gesture of agreement. This explains much about human behavior that we have observed but not understood. Your species' willingness to explore unknown territories, to experiment with new technologies, to form alliances with species very different from yourselves, these all reflect the same underlying adaptability. Vexani's expression showed deep consideration. If this is accurate, then humans represent a fundamentally different approach to survival and advancement than any species currently in the Galactic Council. Over the following days, Elena found herself participating in increasingly complex discussions about human nature and its implications for galactic civilization. The initial panic about food contamination had given way to intense curiosity about human capabilities. Dr. Kethtar, who had initially been her strongest opponent, requested a formal meeting to discuss what he called the human biological advantage. They met in his laboratory, surrounded by the precise, sterile environment that Meridians preferred. Dr. Vasquez, Kethtar began, his compound eyes reflecting the clinical lighting, I owe you an apology. My initial assessment of human food practices was based on Meridian biological limitations and cultural assumptions. I failed to consider that different evolutionary paths might produce equally valid survival strategies. Elena was surprised by the admission. Dr. Kethtar, you were protecting your people and the station. That's exactly what you should have done given the information you had. But that is precisely the point, Kethtar replied. I made decisions based on incomplete information and cultural assumptions. Your demonstration showed me that what appears dangerous from one perspective may actually be sophisticated adaptation from another perspective. He activated a holographic display showing comparative biological data from various galactic species. I have been reviewing the evolutionary histories of all Council member species. Do you know what I discovered? Elena shook her head, studying the complex data patterns floating in the air between them. Every other species in the Galactic Council has evolved toward increasing specialization, Kethtar explained. We have optimized our biology for specific environmental conditions, specific food sources, specific social structures. This specialization has made us very efficient within our particular niches. The display shifted to show human evolutionary data, which stood out dramatically from the other patterns. Humans, Kethtar continued, have evolved in the opposite direction. You have maintained and even enhanced your biological flexibility. While other species became more specialized, humans became more adaptable. Elena studied the data with growing interest. What does that mean for galactic civilization? It means that humans may possess capabilities that no other galactic species has, Kethtar said. The ability to adapt quickly to new environments, to find solutions in unexpected places, to survive conditions that would be lethal to specialized species. These could be enormously valuable assets for a civilization that is still expanding into unknown territories. The implications were staggering. Elena realized that the simple act of grilling 3-day-old herbs had revealed something about humanity that even humans themselves hadn't fully understood. Their unique evolutionary position in a galaxy full of specialized species. The revelation led to a series of emergency council sessions. Representatives from every member species gathered to debate what the human presence might mean for the future of galactic civilization. Elena was invited to address the full council, a gathering of beings so diverse that the chamber required multiple atmospheric zones and environmental controls. She stood at the central podium, surrounded by the representatives of civilizations spanning hundreds of worlds. "Honored delegates," she began. "When I came to this station, I thought I was here to share some simple cooking techniques. I never imagined that my 3-day-old herbs would lead to such profound discussions about the nature of life and adaptation in our galaxy." She gestured to the assembled beings, each representing millions or billions of their respective species. "Each of your civilizations has achieved remarkable things through specialization and optimization. You have created technologies, art, and social systems that perfectly match your biological capabilities and environmental needs." Elena paused, letting her gaze move across the diverse gathering. "Humans offer something different. Not better or worse, but different. We offer adaptability, experimental thinking, and the ability to find unexpected solutions to complex problems." Ambassador Veltar's crystalline form shimmered as they spoke. "Dr. Vasquez, while we appreciate your perspective on human capabilities, the Council must consider the practical implications. How can we integrate a species with such unpredictable capabilities into our established systems?" Elena had been expecting this question. "By doing exactly what you've been doing for the past week, asking questions, gathering information, and adapting your understanding based on new evidence. The same flexibility you're showing in reconsidering human capabilities is the flexibility that will make galactic civilization stronger." Dr. Oral Vane of the Synthetic Intelligence Collective spoke through their mechanical interface. "The collective has analyzed human behavioral patterns extensively. We concur that human adaptability represents a unique resource. However, we also recognize that human unpredictability could introduce system instabilities." "That's true," Elena acknowledged. "But consider what you gain in exchange for accepting some uncertainty. Humans can serve as explorers for regions too dangerous for specialized species. We can develop solutions to problems that require experimental approaches. We can act as intermediaries between species with very different biological needs." She paused to let the ideas settle. "Most importantly, humans can help galactic civilization itself become more adaptable. Our presence doesn't threaten your specializations. It enhances them by providing capabilities you don't need to develop yourselves." The debate that followed was intense and wide-ranging. Some species argued that human unpredictability posed unacceptable risks. Others contended that human adaptability could provide solutions to long-standing galactic challenges. Still others proposed various forms of restricted membership that would allow human participation while limiting potential disruptions. Elena listened to the discussions with growing appreciation for the complexity of galactic governance. Each species brought their own perspective, their own concerns, and their own ideas about how to move forward. The process was slow and sometimes frustrating, but it was also thorough and considerate of every viewpoint. After 3 days of debate, the Council reached a decision that surprised everyone, including Elena. Rather than voting on immediate human membership or rejection, they proposed something unprecedented: a joint experimental program. Ambassador Kethral announced the decision to the assembled delegates. "The Unified Trade Consortium hereby proposes the establishment of the Galactic Adaptation Research Initiative. This program will partner human adaptability specialists with representatives from Council member species to address challenges that require innovative solutions. The proposal was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to fit humans into existing galactic structures, they would create new structures that could take advantage of human capabilities while respecting the needs of other species. Elena would lead the first project, a mission to establish sustainable food production systems on worlds with unstable environmental conditions. Her team would include specialists from multiple species, each contributing their unique capabilities to solve problems that no single species could address alone. As the council session ended, Elena found herself surrounded by representatives eager to discuss potential collaboration projects. The fear and suspicion that had greeted her arrival had been replaced by curiosity and excitement about new possibilities. Dr. Zara Okafor approached with a broad smile. "Well, Elena, you came here to demonstrate herb grilling, and you ended up revolutionizing galactic diplomatic policy. Not bad for a day's work." Elena laughed, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. "I still can't believe all of this started because I wanted to show them how to properly prepare 3-day-old herbs. Sometimes the smallest actions have the biggest consequences," Zara replied. "You showed them something they had never seen before, a species that thrives on controlled risk and deliberate uncertainty. For beings who have spent millennia optimizing for safety and predictability, that was both terrifying and fascinating." Elena looked around the chamber where beings from across the galaxy were engaged in animated discussions about adaptation, exploration, and the value of diverse approaches to survival. Her simple cooking demonstration had opened doors to conversations that might never have happened otherwise. "The ironic thing," Elena mused, "is that humans have always known we were different. We just never realized how different until we met species who had evolved in completely different directions." Zara nodded. "And now that difference isn't something to be hidden or apologized for. It's something to be celebrated and utilized for the benefit of everyone." As Elena prepared to leave the council chamber, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come to Station Kepler 442 carrying a simple bundle of herbs and a desire to share human culinary traditions. She was leaving as the director of an unprecedented interspecies collaboration program that could reshape galactic civilization. The 3-day-old herbs had served their purpose perfectly, though not in the way Elena had originally intended. They had been the catalyst for a transformation that went far beyond food preparation. They had helped the galaxy discover that diversity of approach could be just as valuable as optimization of method. Elena smiled as she thought about her next project. Establishing sustainable food systems on unstable worlds would be challenging, but she wouldn't be facing those challenges alone. She would have the support and expertise of the galaxy's most specialized species, working together to solve problems that none of them could address individually. It was, she realized, exactly the kind of collaboration that could only happen when beings were willing to look beyond their initial assumptions and discover the value in approaches very different from their own. The journey from "that's unfit for consumption" to revolutionary diplomatic breakthrough had shown that sometimes the most important discoveries came from the most unexpected sources. As she walked through the station's corridors for the last time as a simple cultural exchange participant, Elena carried with her the knowledge that humans had found their place in the galaxy, not by becoming more like other species, but by helping everyone understand that being different was exactly what made them valuable. The herbs were long gone, consumed in a demonstration that had lasted only minutes. But their impact would echo through galactic civilization for generations to come, proof that sometimes the smallest acts of courage and curiosity could change the universe itself.